Hello everyone, welcome to oratrainings.com. In this session, we'll discuss about how do we loop get request in Postman using a data file. Let us get into agenda. We'll try to understand the folder structure of Postman, the different variable and their scopes. How do we set a value for a variable? How do we mention a variable in the test script? How to use a variable, initial and current values, and the different variable types. And the last and the very important thing is how do we use runner to run through iterations using data file. So the first thing is how do we use this particular tool called Postman and what is the folder structure? Okay. So this is a Postman desktop tool screenshot. And the first basic thing is here the top level component is home. Under that you have a workspaces. Under the workspaces, we have collections, environments, as well as history. So now what we have to do is once you download the Postman, you have to create a workspace. Under the workspace, you create a collection. And then under the collection, you create the underlying request, whichever you want to have it. And the environments and history, we don't even use it in our tool today, but these are some of the things which are available under the workspace. Okay. Home, workspace, and collection. These three things we'll use today. And now coming to next thing, the different variable scopes. Like generally in every programming language, we know the variables and their scopes. Similarly, in this Postman tool also, even though it's not a programming language environment, and it is internally it follows some kind of scripting language, and for that it provided different variable scopes, like starting with local to the till global variables, local variables, global variables, and the middle one we have collection variables. Okay, so now in today's session we'll be trying to work on the collection variables, nothing but declaring our variable at the collection level. And how do we set a variable? So to set a variable, you just prepare the respective get operation or a web service operation, prepare the URL for that particular web service, and in that one, whatever the variable you want to provide, nothing but the value which you want to provide at runtime, for that you just provide a flower braces, and then you mention the value for that. Once you click on that particular value, it automatically shows an option called set as a variable, and there you can mention what is the variable name and what is the scope of that. So that's how you can consider, that's how you can create a variable in the Postman. Okay? And there are different variables you can provide in the test script. As of now, in our session today, we are not using this kind of test script logic. But if at all, if you want to if you want to work on a data iteration using test script logic, you can use these kind of methods. So I just provided only for reference purpose. And the next thing is, how do we use a variable? As we just said earlier, you can just mention your particular web service, and what are the variable name you want to mention, you just have to mention the curly braces or flower braces, double flower braces. If at all using a web service in the get request, this is how you have to provide. And if at all you want to provide in the body, let us say for a particular web service, sometimes the parameter may not be just in the direct URL, it can be within the body kind of content, right? In those kind of scenarios, what you have to do is the same thing, but only thing is you have to mention them in the double quotes, again flower braces, and then the variable name. And now for a particular variable, you also have a initial value as well as current value. Okay. So the only thing is it gets synced with the Postman server. Other one does not get synced with the Postman server. Okay. So other thing is like variables, there are two types. One is default and other one is secret. So if it is a default, it shows the value, but if it is secret, like you can't, the particular value will be hidden or masked, I can say. Generally, it is used when you want to deal with the PI kind of information or password kind of information. Now, coming to the main functionality. So what all we require? So in this particular session, I'm using a tool called Postman, which is a desktop tool. You can download it. Another one is I'm using a web service from Oracle Fusion ERP, and this is a URL for that. So if at all, if you're not working with Oracle Fusion ERP, you can use any of the get service, which has considered that it is having a parameter. And also you have a get you also have a echo request from the Postman. If not, you can just use any of the public available web service which is having a parameter to just play around with this particular content. Okay. So, but in our session, we are using a web service from the Oracle Fusion ERP for the AP invoice. Okay. Now, so now how do we create a collection? So assuming that you already have a home, I mean desktop tool installed, and you just click on home, then create a workspace. Under the workspace, you just create a collection. In my session here in this particular what you call slide, you could see that the name of the collection I mentioned is AP Invoices Get Loop. And under this particular collection, you create a get request, and the request name I mentioned as AP invoice get request. And this particular get request from Oracle Fusion, it is having a parameter called invoice ID. So I just mentioned the variable name as invoice ID Fusion. And now, once you prepare this one, you just provide a particular value and try to test it whether it is working fine or not, and make sure that if you are able to invoke it properly with appropriate values, I mean, if it is providing a result for you, if it gives a response as 200, okay, then it is perfect. Your web service is working fine. And then what you can do is you just click on runner. Once you tested your particular web service, just click on runner. And then next thing what you have to do is you just click on runner and then drag and drop the collection or your get request into this particular plain area. And this is how it shows. And then once you have dropped this particular your get request on this particular area, then we can select a data file. So assuming that you have to prepare a data file which is having the list of values which you want to pass to that particular web service. So in my particular example, what I have done is I want to execute the get request for 4 invoices. So I prepared a data file which is having the 4 invoices, like with a in a CSV formatted way. You select data file. Once you select the data file, this is how it shows it. And also it automatically recognizes the format of your data file, and also it provides the number of iterations it has to run. So in our example, was having 4 records. That's the reason it mentioned the iterations as 4. And then once it is done, you simply click on run AP invoices get loop, and that's it. It provides all the get requests, and you can click on any of the responses and you can validate whether it is executing properly or not. Okay, so this is how we can work with the Postman using data file. Now we'll see the functionality from the Postman. So this is the first thing. So you just click on home, and now you just click on workspaces. So what you can do is you can click on create workspaces, and you can mention the workspace name. Okay, workspace is created. Now what you do is just click on collection. So this here you can click on new button, or you can click on here also create new collection, create a blank collection. I'll say AP invoice collection. Our collection is done. And now next thing is click on this particular button. Sorry, just click on here, add a request. And now in this one, you can also mention the request name. I'll say AP invoice request. Now for this particular get, right, you have to mention the URI. So in our case, the URI for the AP invoice is this one. So I'll just mention this. Okay. Now here, if you observe, right, so we have to provide curly braces for this one, double braces, double flower braces, and just click on this particular one. It says unresolved variable. Click on add new variable. So this is our invoice unique ID is our variable name. You just mention any of the a sample value. So let me provide a sample value. So this is my data file, and I'll provide this particular one. But one more important thing is, if at all, if your variable name is this one, and here also in this particular one, you mention the same thing. So I'll try to reset here. What I'll do is now I'll just cancel. I'll mention this value invoice ID Fusion. Click on set as a variable or add new variable, then mention the value like this. Okay. Scope, I'll go with the collection scope, set as a variable. Now you require authorization. Some of the web service may not require any parameter, but in this particular example, the web service which I'm using, it requires a username password token. So I mean, we got it populated automatically as I have been using it frequently. So I'll try to click on send and validate whether it's working fine or not. Yeah, it is working fine perfectly. And now the next thing is, once we have validated our web service and it provided a response 200 okay, then you click on runner. Now either you can drag and drop the collection or just drag and drop only the request also. Either way it is fine. Now I'll just drag and drop the collection. It shows our collection name, and also you just click on persist response for a session, and now you select the data file here, data, and select the file. So I'll select the data file which we have prepared. So I'll select the data file invoice ID list, and automatically it shows iterations. You can also see the preview whether the data is fine or not, what it is actually having. and then click on run AP invoice collection. That's it. So it should have been executed 4 times. Of course, it executed, but it got some error. We can just see that. Okay, so it says it is empty. Let's see. Let me save it first. Let me try again. Here we are able to execute properly. Click on runner, and I'll just try to drag and drop the request. Select the file. Yeah, perfect. So we're able to see it, and here a response is not available. Just click on this run configuration. So make sure that you select this one, persist response, and again, yeah, the file was already selected. You can just try again clicking on this button. Okay, just click on this particular one. You can see the response here, and every time the different invoice ID is passed. So now here it is observed, right? It is ending with 4515. You can just see the other one, 1202, and similarly 0829. So this is how we can pass a data file. It is, in our case, we just consider the get request, but you can also work on the post one or patch one with different set of things. Okay, so this is all about how do we loop the list of how do we loop, get request using data file using a postman. Thank you.